Hey, Monica.
Hey, Bob.
Hey,
how are you?
Oh, it's nice to see you.
Likewise.
How's everything?
Great, great. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I was just staring at all the really yummy
Yeah.
treats. So.
Yeah. I think I'll have a few of those.
Yeah, let's order. Bob, you've been an environmental policy leader and in and out of government for, what, 40 years?
Thanks for that.
Well, sorry. It's the truth, and you have the credentials. Where do you think we stand right now on our path to a clean energy future?
Well, it's a little shaky, I have to say. But interestingly enough, regardless of the national policy scene, even the international policy scene, there continues to be built-in momentum in the system, as they say. We're still seeing greenhouse gas emissions declining in the power sector. We're seeing the automobile industry continuing to innovate on different kinds of electric and other fueled vehicles. And we're seeing most large companies continuing to maintain a profile that they have to deal with this issue over the long haul.
And I know you're very plugged into the business community and the steps that they're taking. What are you hearing from business leaders right now in terms of the investments that they're looking to make, willing to make in the clean energy space?
I think I continue to be heartened by that. I mean, it's not across the board and probably as much as we need to be making, but you see large banks making very substantial commitments in the hundreds of billions of dollars toward clean energy investments, banks like JP Chase or Bank of America, for example. There are many other ones. And they are proceeding on those courses. You see large investing companies, people like BlackRock, who are looking at what the long-term climate risk is. I think you have a situation where the financial institutions, the investment world, the capital markets are starting to look more long-term about what those risks are and expecting companies to have some plan. And I think that's a change from 20 years ago.
The conversation still really focuses and centers around renewables,
Yes.
but it could go beyond that. So how do you sort of convince the business community that it's not just about renewables and to sort of expand that definition of what clean energy is?
We have a substantial amount of decarbonized electricity already. We do have hydropower, we have growing renewables, but we also have nuclear power. That's at 20% of our electricity. So you have between nuclear, hydropower, and the newer renewables like wind and solar, we're up in near 30, maybe a little more than 30% of our electricity right now is carbon-free. And we need to maintain that and expand that. So we need all of these sources. We can't have sort of the circular arguing all the time about which way to do it. We need them all. And almost every objective look at a cost-effective way to get a decarbonized electric grid and then do all the other things we need to do, it's a mix of these things that really is needed to do it cost-effectively.
And nuclear and renewables would seem to go hand in hand, but very often the conversation is about replacing nuclear with renewables. Why is there that disconnect? Why are we essentially having a different conversation than others are having?
Getting these sources of energy to work together is one of my side jobs, I think. I like to really bring them together, whether it's in our convenings at C2ES or whether I get a chance to speak to the different trade associations. I try to talk about how we can make these things work together because we have to. There's no way around it.
You mentioned the state action that we've been seeing, and so much of the action has pivoted to state and local communities. Is that enough for the time being, or do you really need that federal policy lever?
If you have a situation where you have a state that has nuclear energy already being used and they want to adopt a stronger goal for renewable power, instead of looking at one as replacing the other, look at how they work together so you're total. So New Jersey just this past session enacted legislation that will provide a fail-safe for some of the nuclear energy New Jersey has, which is already close to 40% of its power. And they've adopted a goal of 50% renewable. So if you take those two together, they actually have a goal of 90%, zero emitting energy for New Jersey,
Yeah.
as opposed to one being replacing the other. Look at how they build on each other. And so I think in the near term, some of these things are pretty important to be done. But ultimately, if we want all states involved, and if we want to look at how to do this more cost effectively in the economy, we're going to need some of these federal signals.
You and I have our Italian heritage in common, and next time we'll have to eat at an Italian restaurant.
How do you think DC Italian food compares to New York Italian food?
Well, that's just not fair.
I know.
It's just not fair. I mean,
I love going back home.
I just spent, I love Washington. I love living here. It's such an amazing city. But I also have lived in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is home of at least 5 of the best pizza pies in the entire city of New York. So
Yeah.
sometimes I hear a rumor that there might be some in Staten Island. But so,
Do you know, I grew up in Queens. I don't think I've ever been to Staten Island.
well, I've been there. It's an amazing. That's also an amazing place. But I've been in every nook and cranny of that city, like in this city as well.
Well, Bob, thank you for your time today. It's always so good to see you.
Yeah, likewise, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.